Magandang umaga po sa lahat. Kami po ang grupong inatasan upang talakayin ang Module 3 na pinamagatang Gender Issue in Economy. Kami po ang Group 4 na tatalakayin ang mga sumusunod. Una ay ang Gender Issue in Labor na tatalakayin ni Joshua Niedo. Sumunod naman ay ang Women's Issue in Development na kung saan ito ay tatalakayin ni Miss Dayanara Guerra, at ang panghuli ay ang Gender Issue in Agriculture and Natural Resources na tatalakayin naman nina Christian Mapalad at Zaldi Tabo. At the end of this discussion, the student should be able to analyze the relationship of gender, gender equality, and labor. Also, determine the status of gender equality in the various sector of labor market, and comprehend silent policies of gender equality in the labor market.
So, gender issues and labor. Gender equality is the heart of ILO's Decent Work agenda, the aim of which is to promote opportunities for women and men to obtain decent and productive work in conditions of freedom, equity, security, and human dignity. So ILO's work is pertaining to the equality of men and women to acquire decent work or jobs. Ang pinatutungkulan ng pag-aaral daw ni ILO ay mga patungkol sa pagkakaroon ng kakapantay-pantay ng mga lalaki, mga kalalakihan, kababaihan para makahanap ng disenteng trabaho at disenteng kita. The aim of ILO's Decent Work agenda is for all workers sa lahat ng manggagawa, babae o lalaki, are to benefit for more decent jobs and income. Papatungkol daw umano ang pag-aaral ni ILO sa mga kalalakihan, kababaihan na makahanap ng disenteng trabaho at kita. True decent work could only be assured in a society that would allow labor markets to provide equal opportunities and equitable living incomes to various social groups, regardless of personal attributes, be they biological, social, religious, or political. Makakamtan lang daw umano ang totoong disenteng trabaho o magkakaroon lamang daw ng disenteng trabaho ang bawat isa sa isang komunidad na nagbibigay ng pantay ng pagkilala, nagbibigay ng pantay na karapatan, anumang estado ng buhay mo, saan ka mang grupo na bibilang, anumang relihiyong kinabibilangan mo, at kung anumang politikal na partido sa iyong sinusuportahan. Sumunod, moving on. The Magna Carta of Women, enacted in 2009, is comprehensive women's human rights law that seeks to eliminate discrimination against women by recognizing, protecting, fulfilling, and promoting the rights of Filipino women, especially those in marginalized sector. Ang Magna Carta umano, ang Magna Carta of Women na pinasa noong taong 2009 ay isang batas na naghahanap umano or kumikilala para matapos na ang diskriminasyon, para rin kilalanin ang karapatan ng mga kababaihan, upang maprotektahan ang karapatan ng mga kababaihan, at pagbibigay umano ng pagbibigay ng equal rights or pantay na karapatan sa mga kababaihan at kalalakihan. Kabilang na rin yung mga kababaihang nasa marginalized sector. So this act recognizes that equality of men and women entails the abolition of unequal structures and practices that perpetuate discrimination and inequality. In connection with employment, the Philippine Commission on Women indicate that the Magna Carta of Women will level the playing field by making productive resources and economic opportunities equally available for men and women. So, ang Philippine Commission on pertains that the Magna Carta for Women made the resources and everything equally. The Philippine Commission on Women made the rights for women equal to those of men. Going on, stereotyping is prevalent in Filipino customs and traditions, where children, as they grow up, the society dictates to do some specific task. For example, girls are assigned to perform household chores like helping their mother in cooking, washing dishes, and cleaning the house. So, laganap nga daw umano ang stereotyping sa kulturang Pilipino. Yes, totoo nga yan. In fact, nag-provide nga ng isang halimbawa dito na kapag ang babae lumalaki, binibigyan siya ng mga task or mga gawain na para lamang sa mga babae. Pinapasama siya sa kanyang nanay upang matuto ng mga gawain bahay tulad ng paglilinis, paglalaba, pagluluto, wherein sa mga kalalakihan naman, they are expected to help their father in fetching water, repairing things, in which dito nakikita din yung stereotyping sa mga kalalakihan, kung saan ang mga kalalakihan ay pinapasama sa kanilang mga tatay o kung sino mang masculine image sa kanilang pamilya, for example sa kanilang tito, lolo o ano paman. So kita yan, bumabakat yan dito sa ating kultura, the stereotyping within men and women. So, and since women are expected to take care of the family, their education is less priority. Yes, sad to say na makikita yan dito sa ating bansa na women are less prioritized in terms of education this past years or decades or so. So, maganda naman na nakikita na this past years medyo may equality na nakikita for women to have or attain the equal rights in having education na tinatamasa ng mga kalalakihan. So, moving on, men are often sent to school while women are expected to take care of their young siblings. So, sa pamilya, mas pinapriority umano ang lalaki sa pag-aaral, wherein yung mga kababaihan umano sa pamilya ay iniiwan lamang sa pamilya upang mag-alaga ng mas nakababata nilang kapatid, which as far as I observe, hindi naman na ganun ka-observe dito sa ating bansa. Going on, men and women should give equal opportunity to learn and perform different skills based on their ability and best to grow. So moving on, men and women should be given equal opportunity to learn and perform different skills based on their ability and interest to grow. So, every single individual, babae or lalaki man, must be given the equal rights for them to flourish, in order for them to become productive, and it all must be based on their interest to grow, kung paano man nila nakikita yung sarili nila sa hinaharap. So men and women should have the rights in order for them to choose their own path. So household task is not merely responsibility of women, but the entire family members. Yes, it is also a kind of stereotype that ang mga kababaihan ang dapat mag-alaga sa buong pamilya, which is not true. but also about the entire family must be the one that will be held responsible to tend or to take care of the household. The idea of no one must left behind must be adopted in order to have a just and equal society. Ang pagkilala umano sa mga kakayahan or karapatan ng bawat isa sa kababaihan man or kalalakihan must be recognized. Dapat kilalanin ang karapatan ng bawat isa para magkaroon ng isang just or just and equal na society. So moving on, we are now in the employment sector. So first is agriculture. Here in the Philippines, women are still longly tied to their traditional roles as mother, wife, and housekeeper. Yes, here in the Philippines, dito sa Pilipinas, mas binibigyang tuon ang mga kababaihan, mas kinikilala sila sa pagiging nanay, sa pagiging tagapag-alaga ng buong pamilya, which is strongly observed in our modern society nowadays. In agriculture activities, their primary task is to prepare food to be brought to the field during mealtime or sometimes engage in planting rice, but women farmers do not have the equal opportunity to acquire land registered to their own names. So, makikita umano dito na ang mga magulang or ang mga kababaihan daw ay may layaman silang makapagsaka din tulad ng kanilang mga asawa or mga kalalakihan. Wala umanong binibigay sa kanilang karapatan upang mangangkin or mag-acquire, magkaroon ng sariling lupa na pangalan umano ng pangalan nila ang nakalagay dun sa land title. They have fewer inheritance rights. Unti umano ang kanilang karapatan upang magmana ng mga ari-arian kasama na ang lupain. Land ownership are important not only to women's ability to earn income but also as a source of empowerment and autonomy within the household. Their lack of land also affects their ability to gain credit facilities. So makikita umano ang inequality pagdating sa agrikultura, sektor ng agrikultura, sapagkat ang mga babaihan ay less fortunate or hindi sila nabibigyang karapatan para magkaroon ng sariling lupa, unlike sa mga kalalakihan. So sumunod naman ay sa sektor ng industriya at paggawa or industry and manufacturing. The number of women working in economic zone is estimated to represent 64%. So 64 na bahagdan umano ang kumakatawan sa mga kababaihan sa paggawa or sa puwersa ng paggawa or manufacturing or even sa economic zones such as electronics. So kabilang ang industriya ng electronics sa mga may malalaking bilang or porsyento ng mga kababaihang nagtatrabaho. According yan sa World Bank sa taong 2011. Women share employment in the export processing zone than women's share of the labor force as a whole, and the conditions of employment are of concern. So maraming nga daw kababaihan ang mga nandito nasa ganitong sektor, ngunit nakababahala umano kung paano ang kondisyon ng kanilang pagtatrabaho, kondisyon ng kanilang employment, or kung ano man ang kondisyon nila as a whole sa field na kanilang pinagtatrabahuhan. So sumunod tayo, moving on, is sa sangay naman ng turismo or tourism. It appears that tourism planning has not included women or has had insufficient rise for the gender issues. With the tourism industry relatively few women have the educational qualifications or foreign language skills to compete for front of house positions in the hotel industry, as tour guides or in travel agencies, and women are more likely to be employed housekeepers, waitresses, similar low-level positions. So, pinapakita ko man dito ang mga kababaihan daw sa sangay or sa turismo ay merong mababang karamihan sa kanila ay may mga mababang uri ng trabaho such as ang pagkakasambahay or paglilinis ng mga resort, sabihin na natin gano'n, pag-waitress at ibang mas mababang uri pa ng posisyon. Ngunit sa panahon ngayon nakikita natin na ang kababaihan humano ang siyang frontliner pagdating sa sangay ng turismo, sapagkat nakikita dito sa ating bansa na marami sa ating mga kababaihan ang mga tour guides. Marami din sa ating mga kababaihan umano ang sila mismo ang nagpapatakbo ng ilang mga bibigatin, mga malalaking resorts dito sa Pilipinas. Karamihan din sa mga kababaihan dito sa Pilipinas ang siyang mga advocates. Sila rin ang taga-promote. Women are also the main promoters of tourism in our country. So, those contradicts, di ba? Sumasalungat naman yung nakikita kong mga pagbabago or equality umano ng pagbibigay ng trabaho or karapatan ng mga kababaihang makapagtrabaho sa sangay ng turismo. Dito naman tayo sa business processing outsourcing. The Philippines Information Technology Business Process Outsourcing Roadmap 2011 to 2016 is not gender responsive and does not address women's constraints in assessing higher paid work in non-voice services or the likely growth in information technology and engineering. These matters, as well as the pay differentials between men and women and employment conditions, require specific government attention. So dito umano sa sangay ng business processing and outsourcing, dito umano nagkakaroon ng pagpalag ang mga kababaihan, sapagkat karamihan umano sa mga napipili sa gantong uri ng trabaho ay mga kalalakihan, at ang mga kababaihan ay nabibigyan ng mas maliit ng nabibigyan naman ng kababayan ng mas maliit na pagtingin or qualifications pagdating dito sa gantong uri ng trabaho. So this matters, as well as the pay differentials between men and women. So isa umano itong concern para sa pamahalaan, sapagkat nagkakaroon ng mas malaking agwat ang mga sweldo ng kalalakihan at kababaihan sa gantong sangay. So moving on is government services, mga serbisyo publiko mula sa gobyerno. Public sector employment is an important source of jobs with better pay conditions for women than many other industrial sectors. But women are constrained by being predominantly employed in traditional gender stereotype care sector government occupations such as health and education, and they are unrepresented in the higher paying subsectors. So nakikita umano daw ang pagkakaroon ng mga kababaihan, ang presensya ng kababaihan or pantay na presensya ng kababaihan pagdating sa sektor ng serbisyo publiko mula sa gobyerno. Ngunit mas nakikita umano mga kababaihan sa gantong uri ng trabaho sa mga mas hindi kinikilala or hindi nakikitang mga sangay tulad ng sangay ng edukasyon at sangay ng kalusugan. Kumbaga nagkakaroon na naman ng stereotyping, sapagkat ang mga gantong uri ng sangay ay para sa kababaihan. At hindi umano nakikita ang mga kababaihan sa pagkakaroon ng mas matataas na sahod mula sa mas matataas na sangay ng gobyerno. So the Philippines has strong gender mainstream programs which has given women greater access to government and employment generally, but to women in the civil sector may still underpaid. So mababa pa rin daw umano ang kanilang sweldo given their levels of education, experience, and ability. So, meron daw umanong mga kababaihan sa gantong sangay or sa gantong trabaho. Ngunit, mababa pa rin daw ang kanilang sweldo kahit na mataas ang kanilang kwalifikasyon, mataas ang kanilang levels of education, ang kanilang mga kakayahan, at kanilang mga experience, which is yung mga crucial para sa pag-apply ng trabaho. So even though women have those credentials, hindi umano daw sila napupunta sa mas mataas na pwesto sa gobyerno, at they face some difficulties such as underpaid. So moving on, we are now the condition of women in the field of entrepreneurship. There has been a rapid surge in the number and proportion of female entrepreneurs in developing countries. Studies indicate that female-led MSMEs increases employment opportunities for women and contribute to wider development goals. So, in the field of entrepreneurship, dumadami umano ang mga kababaihan sa gantong sa pagbi-business. Dumadami ang bilang ng mga kababaihang nalilink sa mga business. For example, sa larangan ng cosmetics, nauna ang mga kababaihan, sa mga jewelry. For example is Kyla with her works, just like making necklace and more. So doon, by means of those entrepreneurs, na-empower yung women in terms of business, and also it contributes in the development of the country itself. So one survey indicated that women entrepreneurs are more likely than to be motivated by necessity. These are livelihood-oriented entrepreneurs attempting to unemployment. So, ang mga kababayang umano nalilink sa pagbibusiness are motivated by necessity. So, we are now taking or tackling the labor laws that protect women in the workplace. So, number one is the Philippines has ratified 34 ILO conventions and is partly to all of the fundamental United Nations human rights covenants and conventions. The country's 1987 constitution has enshrined these rights in Section 3, Article 8 by the Bill of Rights, and Section 14, Article 2, which ensures fundamental equality of women and men before the law. The next is the Article 3, Chapter 1 of the Labor Code, as well as Republic Acts 6725, 7192, 7877, and 8551. And these laws all provide for fundamental human rights protection, including anti-discrimination, harassment, and temporary special measures. And also, in number 4 is Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 7877 of February 8, 1995 is an example of a good legislative practice. So, anti-sexual harassment bill is very important for the women in the workplace, because nowadays many women suffer from sexual harassment, not even hindi lang sa kanilang hindi lang sa school, hindi lang sa lansangan, hindi lang sa kanilang paaralan, hindi lang sa kanilang tahanan, maski pa na rin pati na rin sa field of sa kanilang piniling workplace or sa kanilang respective workplace, talamak talaga yung mga manyak at rapist. So, anti-sexual harassment is a good law in order to protect our women on their workplace. And also, all of these labor laws is very important. It plays a major role. So, these laws are a necessity for the women para maging mas produktibo sila sa kanilang trabaho. And also for them, para maramdaman nila na they have the equal rights, just like what men have. So, number 5 is also the Magna Carta of Women, also the Republic Act number 9710, is an overall legislative framework that articulates the specific rights, needs, and support required by women in their general and working lives. Although the Magna Carta of Women provides a good legislative framework, implementation issues still remain. Filipino women often do not know about their rights, and the complaint system is confusing even if they do. So number 6 is in the year 2012, the Philippines became the first country in Asia to ratify the ILO's DOMS Workers Convention, and in early 2013, President Aquino also signed a new Republic Act 10361 known as the Batas Kasambahay or the Domestic Workers Act in order to better protect this large group of mostly young female workers.
Next topic is the Women and Development or the WAD. Here, as a result of criticisms of the WID approach or the Women in Development approach, the Women and Development approach arose in the latter part of the 1970s, adopting a Marxist feminist approach. The main argument of WAD or WAD was that women had always been part of the development processes. WAD asserts that women have always been important economic actors. The work they do both inside and outside the household is critical to the maintenance of society. However, this integration has only served to sustain global inequalities. In other words, the WID approach or the Women in Development approach that placed emphasis on integrating women into development was not correct. The main focus of WAD or the WAD is on the interaction between women and development. Women, as a result, were being increasingly associated with backwardness and the traditional, while men were increasingly identified with modern and progressiveness. In other words, the main goal of this approach or the Women in Development approach is to integrate the women into the global economies by improving their status and assistance in developing society. Next topic is the Women and Development or the WAD. Here, as a result of criticisms of the WID approach or the Women in Development approach, the Women and Development approach arose in the latter part of the 1970s, adopting a Marxist feminist approach. The main argument of WAD or WAD was that women had always been part of the development processes. WAD asserts that women have always been important economic actors. The work they do both inside and outside the household is critical to the maintenance of society. However, this integration has only served to sustain global inequalities. In other words, The WID approach, or the Women in Development approach, that placed emphasis on integrating women into development was not correct. The main focus of WAD, or the WAD, is on the interaction between women and development. Women, as a result, were being increasingly associated with backwardness and the traditional, while men were increasingly identified with modern and progressiveness. Sa madaling salita, dito sa approach na ito, ang women and development ay nakapokus sa interaksyon ng mga kababaihan sa pagde-develop sa society. Kinokontra nito yung sinabi or pahayag sa women in development na mga babae daw ay hindi nagiging parte ng development or development processes or any activities outside their home or in the society. Sinabi dito na ang WID approach that placed emphasis on integrating women into development was not correct dahil hindi daw nito natumpo yung main cause or root cause ng gender inequality. Another thing, women as a result were being increasingly associated with backwardness in the traditional, while men were increasingly identified with modern and progressiveness. Sinabi na mga kababaihan daw ay mananatili na lang sa traditional nilang role na taong bahay, nangangalaga sa bahay, or anything that can describe being a woman in the house. While men, or the men's, are the one who is modern and progressive enough because they are more engaged in the society rather than women's. Next topic is the equity approach. Feminist calls for gender equality were important in bringing about this approach, the main aim of which was to eliminate discrimination. It emphasized the revaluing of women's contribution in share of benefits from development. The equity approach also dealt with both the productive and reproductive roles as a responsibility of government. The equity approach, in contrast to the welfare approach, saw women as active participants organizing to bring about necessary changes. Dito sa equity approach, from the word itself, equity, walang discrimination between men and women because in this approach, men and women are equal. Nabibigyan ng importansya ang mga kababaihan, ganun din sa mga kalalakihan, or pareho silang may access sa development or nakukuha nila yung mga benefits na dapat sa kanila. Sinasabi din na dito sa equity approach, ang mga kababaihan daw ay nakakapag-ambag ng magagandang pagbabago sa society, kaya ang mga responsibilidad or mga inaiambag nila doon ay binibigyan ng importansya at pinapahalagahan. Sinasabi din dito sa equity approach na this approach focuses on both the productive and reproductive role of women with an emphasis on satisfaction of basic needs and the productivity of women. A key operational strategy required access to income generation and wage employment. The tendency with this approach was to reinforce the basic needs and ignore the strategic needs of women. Dito sa equity approach, parehong nabibigyan ng pagkakataon ng babae at lalaki at iniiwasan yung gender inequality or eliminate discrimination. Another approach to be discussed is the efficiency approach. The efficiency approach aims to have increased production and economic growth with an emphasis on full use of human resources. Advocates of this approach argue that gender analysis makes good economic sense. This is because understanding men's and women's roles and responsibilities as part of the planning of development activities helps improve effectiveness and ensures that women as well as men can play their part in national development. The efficiency approach succeeded in bringing the concerns about women and gender into the mainstream of development. However, this was done with the focus on what women can do for development rather than on what development could do for women. And the last topic about women issues and development is the empowerment approach. The aim of the empowerment approach is to increase the self-reliance of women and to influence change at the policy, legislative, societal, economic, and other levels to their advantage. Its main strategy is awareness raising and situates women firmly as active participants in ensuring changes takes place. The empowerment approach has been instrumental in ensuring that opportunities are opened for women to determine their own needs. However, empowerment has often been misunderstood to be an end rather than a means. This has resulted in poor women becoming very knowledgeable about issues while realizing little change to their material situation, which is often dire.
Dito sa gender agriculture, no? Agriculture is an essential industry that provides most of world food supply. No? Sila yung supply ng pagkain sa atin sa buong mundo. Hindi lamang sa tao, pati na rin sa hayop. No? Sinasabi dito na it is a purposeful work where our diverse activities are mostly performed by men. No? Sinasabi dito na halos kalalakihan daw ang mga gumagawa nito sa pangkalahatan. Sunod natin ay ang gender issue agriculture, no? Sinasabi naman dito na mas tinatangkilik ang mga trabaho ng lalaki kaysa sa babae. Kaya nagkakaroon ng gap sa pagitan ng babae at lalaki na kung saan mas pinipiling piliin ang lalaki sa trabaho kaysa sa mga kababaihan. Next, key issue in agriculture. Dito naman sa key issues in agriculture, meron itong 4 na sakop. No? Una, ang land. Sinasabi rito na the state guaranteed equal right to ownership of land, equal share of farm produce. No, dapat daw pareho ang kikitain mo o kukunin mo sa matatanggap yung kita doon sa napagsaka nyo. Hindi pwedeng mas lamang ka o mas lamang yung trabahador mo. Dapat pareho ang inyong kikitain. Kasi yun nga, sinabi na rito na mas malaki ang binibigay na oras ng magsasaka kaysa sa may-ari. At noong 2019, sinabi rito na land ownership of women indicate awarded and total certificate of land ownership awarded. No? Sinabi rito na pareho na binigyang batas na pareho kung anong kita mo, ganoon din ang kita ng manggagawa mo. Sumunod dito ay ang farm employment. The agriculture sector mainly composed of men at 77%, while 23% of employed workers are women. Women in the Philippines are often conceived of as invisible farmer. Now, sinasabi dito na ang composed na ng trabaho ng lalaki ay 77%, while ang kababaihan naman daw ay 23% na sobrang baba. Dahil dito mas tinatangkilik ang mga kalalakihan na magtrabaho. Dahil walang garon daw kakayahan ang mga babae na magtrabaho o makisabay sa mga gawain ng mga lalaki. Sumunod naman dito, access to credit. Women's access to credit and their financial service hamper their ability to establish enterprise and engage to income generating activities. No? Hindi sila pinapayagang mag-business. Yun na nga, sinasabi na wala daw kakayahan. No? Limited access lang daw ang kailangan ng mga babae. No? Sinasabi dito na pang market, enterprise, yung mga ganun lang, negotiable link, agriculture, mga ganun lalawang. Pero limitado. No? Ang sumunod pa rito, ang isa ay educational training. Most rural women lack formal education. No? Para sa mga babaeng walang kakayahan, binibigyan sila ng training. No? Training para sa mga hindi nakapag-aral. Merong kakip na tulong sa kanila na kung saan kahit wala silang pinag-aralan, meron silang matututunan at makukuhang kakayahan, no? Nandahil dito sa educational training na kung saan na pwede na silang makisabay sa mga ibang kalalakihan, Yun lamang.
Gender equality and rural women empowerment in agriculture. The Philippines' participation in United Nations Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, or CEDAW, in 1980 is substantial in promoting development and empowerment of Philippine women. The CEDAW considers rural women's right to land and natural resources, forestry, as well as fisheries. As such, states party ensures effective access to agricultural resource, including information, lands distribution, technologies, and meaningful participation in agriculture cooperative in which women may be members or sole members. Below are the various policies and programs relevant in promotion of gender equality and rural development and women rural empowerment in agriculture. First from the list is the Magna Carta of Women, or the Republic Act 9710. Declares that equal status is given to women and men in land titling and issuance of land instruments. Recognize the following human rights of marginalized women, farmers, fishers, rural workers, and indigenous peoples. In Section 20, the first is right to food. The states shall guarantee the availability of food in quantities and qualities sufficient to satisfy the dietary needs of individuals. The physical and economic accessibility for everyone to adequate food that is culturally acceptable and free from unsafe substance and culturally accepted, and the accurate substantial information to the availability of food, including the right to food, accurate and truthful information about safe and health-giving foods, and how to produce and have regular, easy access to them. Sinasabi dito na dapat yung babae ay may sapat na kaalaman or binibigyan ng sapat na informasyon patungkol sa kung paano makakuha ng pagkain at kung paano makakaproduce ng sapat at ligtas na pagkain para sa kanyang pamilya. Susunod na, karagdagan pa dito, ang right to resource for food production. The state shall guarantee women a vital role in food production by giving priority their rights to land, credits, and infrastructure support, technical training, and technological and marketing assistance. Ayon dito, karagdagan pa dito is ini-ensure na ang babae ay may livelihood at including dito ang food security. Women-friendly and sustainable agriculture technology shall be designed, and access to small farmers and control seeds production and distribution shall be ensured and protected. The indigenous practice of women in seed storage and cultivate shall be recognized and encouraged and protected. So, dapat yung mga ginagawa nila ay ma-recognize natin, wag lang yung mga ginagawa ng kalalakihan. Sunod sa listahan ay ang Women in Development and Nation Building, or the RA 7192. The state shall recognize the role of women in nation building and shall ensure the fundamental equality before the law of women and men. The state shall provide the women's rights and opportunities equal to that of men. Dapat binibigyan natin ng equal na oportunidad daw ang babae sa kung anong oportunidad ang nakukuha ng lalaki sa bansa. Ayon sa Section 5, Equality in Capacity to Act, women of legal age regardless of civil status shall have the capacity to act and enter in contract which shall in every respect be equal to that men of under similar circumstances. In all contractual situation where the married men have the capacity to act, married women shall have the equal rights. Karagdagan dito, to this end, women shall have the capacity to borrow and obtain loan and execute security and credit agreement under the same condition as men. Next, women shall have equal access to all government and private sectors program guaranteeing agriculture credits, loan, and non-material resource, and shall enjoy equal treatment in agrarian reform and land resettlement programs. Dapat yung kung ano yung nakukuha ng lalaki sa agrarian reform is sinasabi dito na hindi dapat makita lang sa gender kundi dapat maging equal. Women shall have equal rights to act incorporators and enter into insurance contract. And the last, married women shall have the rights equal to those married men in applying for passports, secure visas, and other travel documents without the consent of their spouse o ng asawa. In all other similar contractual relations, women shall enjoy equal rights and shall have the capacity to act, which shall in every respect be equal to those men under the similar circumstance. Yung mga sinasabi dito is nakita naman nating na-apply na dito sa ating bansa. At hindi naman na tulad noon na kailangan pa ng consents ng lalaki para makapag-act yung babae. Next is the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law or the Republic Act 6657 year 1988 and the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program Extension with Reforms or the RA 9700 of 2009. The CARL or the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law promotes the rights of rural women independent of their male relative and of their civil status to own and control land, to receive a just share of fruit of land, and to be represented in advisory or appropriate decision-making bodies. Under the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law, women rural laborers have equal right to own land. However, women are seasonal workers who rank third in the priority order of beneficiaries. The DAR has since adopted the Memorandum Circular 18 of 1996 and the Administrative Order Number 1 of 2001 to improve the women's position and implement the gender equality provision of CARL, or the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law. The guidelines specify that no sex discrimination can be made in beneficiary section, and land title are to be issued in the name of both spouse. The CARP, or the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program, contains a section on rural women as a special area in concern. The next is the Agri-Agra Law of 2009, Republic Act 10,000. The Agri-Agra of Law of 2009 mandates all banking institutions to set aside at least 25% of their total loanable fund for agriculture and fisheries, 15% for agricultural lending, and 10% for agrarian reform beneficiaries. The law defines qualified borrowers as in gender neutral in its description. The next is the Philippine Fisheries Code of 1998, Republic Act 8550. The state is to provide support to the fishers sectors, primarily in the municipal fisher folks, including women and youth sectors, through the appropriate technology, and research adequate financial and construction of post-harvest facilities, marketing assistance, and other services through mechanisms such as the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, which should coordinate with the local government unit or the LGU, and other concerned agencies to be able to enable women in fishing communities to engage in other fishery economic activities in the municipality or the city Fisheries and Aquatic Resources Management Council. Integrated Fisheries and Aquatic Resources Management Council, which should include women and youth. Sinasabi dito sa Philippine Fisheries Code na dapat ay sinasali natin sa usapan ang mga babae dahil hindi lamang trabaho ng lalaki ang pangingisda, kundi sa ngayon ay may babae na rin nangingisda. Susunod naman dito ang National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security of 2017 to 2022. Launched in 2017, the Philippine National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security address the situation of women in armed conflict and recognize their contribution in conflict transportation by highlighting their role as a leader and participant in peace process in the country. According to the Office of the Presidential Advisor on the Peace and Process, the Philippines is the first country in Asia to adopt the National Plan on Women, Peace and Security, na nabanggit na rin ng mga unang nagsalita. Sumunod dito, ang Philippine Development Plan ng 2017 to 2022. The Philippine Development Plan of 2017 to 2022 is the country's guide in policy formulation and implementation of development program for the next 6 years. It is the result of nationwide collaboration between the government, the private sector, and the civil society. Some key efforts of plan have been extracted and are shared below. Una dito ay ang agriculture and agribusiness. According to the Philippine Development Plan, fostering link with industry and service sector for more insufficient adding process and more effective commercialization will be expand opportunity in agriculture. For this to happen, productivity in agriculture will need to be raised. In a medium term, the agriculture, forestry, and fishery sector will seek to expand economic opportunities for those who are in current engaged in producing agricultural products, and increase access to economic opportunities for small farmers and fishers who are typically subsistence procedure producer and have limited market participation. This measure will be beneficial to existing producer, marginalized farmers and fishers, including women and elderly and indigenous people. Ito pinapalawak nito yung ang mga mamimili or binibigyan ng mas maraming oportunidad ang mga maliit na negosyo, mga marginalized farmers at fishers. Binibigyan nito ng mas malawak na market para may pagkakataon silang mas umunlad pa. Sunod dito ay ang health. Effort will be made to help parents determine their family size such as that they will be able to adequate care to provide for their children. Age-appropriate sexuality education will be integrated in school curriculum. Full information, orientation, program on responsible parenthood and the reproductive health will be made widely available. Access to service will be made easier in order to fully meet the need for the modern family planning method. This will be completed by measure to increase the labor market participation of women, to defer childbearing and attain healthy birth spacing. In addition, social policy needed to expand beyond the current range of service to include the social protection for uncovered sectors and disaster risk mitigation, among others, as well as access to quality healthcare. Dito sa health sector naman, ay pinopromote ng bansa natin this 2017 to 2022 ay ang tamang size ng family at maagang pagbibigay ng edukasyon sa mga bata tungkol sa sexuality para na rin mabawasan or malesen yung teenage pregnancy na problema or lumulabong problema ng ating bansa. Next is the labor and employment. The government shall implement programs that encourage women to participate in labor market. So, totoo naman, kailangan ng government na pataasin or magbigay ng program para na rin manghikayat ng mga kababaihan na magtrabaho. Strategies to increase the labor participation of women include: the first is fully implementing the responsible parenthood and reproductive health. The second is improving access and affordability of child care service. C is for formulating policies that promotes work-life balance. D, providing retraining service for women and returning for the workforce. E, enhancing maternal and paternal benefits. And the last is the improving access of women to entrepreneurial opportunities. Next from the list is the Philippine Plan for Gender Responsive Development. The Philippine Plan for Gender and Responsive Development highlights the importance of equal opportunities for both women and men to contribute and to benefit from the agriculture, fisheries development. Especially, it aims to raise the level of consciousness of the rural population and the decision markers on the important roles both women and men plays in agriculture and fisheries, and many more. The next is the Philippine Plan for Gender Responsive Development. To achieve this objective, while taking into account other issues and concern in the sectors, the Philippine Plan for Gender Responsive Development recommends that the following policies and strategies be pursued. First is sensitive rural population to gender issues. Next is mainstream gender concern in the sector's development policies and program. And consider women particular need in implementing projects. Develop rural women capabilities to expand income opportunities for women and provide infrastructural support for them. The plan also encouraged forging a stronger link between government agencies and non-government organizations, or the NGOs. This will expand possibilities for cooperation and sharing of resources and ensure that gender mainstreaming, which can be difficult reorientation for many organizations and agencies, and persuade as the key strategies. In addition, the State of Filipino Women report in 2015 chronicles the key achievement of the PPGD, particularly during the administration of President Benigno Simeon Aquino III. The report highlights the following result. The Filipino rank high in the Global Gender Index. Improve gender responsive governance through initiatives such as the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino Program, or the 4Ps, and the National Action Plan of Women, Peace, and Security. Gender and Development mainstream in higher education na naipakita at kaya na may naibigay na ng mga guro ang edukasyon tungkol sa gender and development sa higher education. Kumbaga na-discuss o naituro na ng mga guro sa higher education ang gender and development. Next is the passage of Responsible Parenthood and Reproductive Health Law. Strengthen the collaboration with the male movement and the network of male advocates such as Men Opposed to Violence Everywhere, and a network of a male anti-violence against women advocate, Men on Wheels, Men's Responsibility on Gender and Development and Empowerment, and last is the reaffirmation of parental abilities. And that's all. Thank you.